Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Well, welcome to our first talk of the day, Dialogue with the Shadows, which is based on the Spirit's book. It is a pleasure to have you all here, and welcome to what I hope will be more than one celebration during the year of our 35th anniversary. I'd like to introduce Yuri. Yuri is a very active speaker around the country, and he's with Conscious Living Spiritist Center in Miami. And he has a podcast called The Spiritist Companion, both in English and in Portuguese, which he's been doing since last year, right? Yeah. And it's a very, I have the pleasure of serving with him on the board of directors of the United States Spiritist Federation. Yuri joined us recently as director of marketing. The U.S. Spiritist Federation is committed to spreading Spiritism in English around the country, and there's a growing, Spiritism is definitely growing in the United States, and I'm happy to report that in terms of English, its presence is much bigger than just even a few years ago. So without further ado, let me have Yuri come up and join us. But before we start, let's also do a quick prayer. Okay. Let us close our eyes. Dear God, our dear beloved mentors, please bless this day. Please bless this center, and please bless all who are here and all who cannot be here. May all of us, each and every day, be in harmony with our higher selves as we learn the deeper path of our spiritual journey. May each of us bring ourselves closer to the path that leads us to you, dear God. May we learn each and every day from everything that we encounter, and may we do our best to cultivate peace and serenity. Amen. Okay, I'd like to present Yuri.
Thanks, Peter. All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Love and Light meeting. This special meeting because we're celebrating, and I say we because I feel I'm part of the house as well, celebrating 35 years of existence. And we're doing 2 talks today, like Peter said, one in English right now and another one in Portuguese at 11 a.m. Different talks. And for the English one, Peter was telling me, thank you so much for the invitation, Peter, first of all. And Peter was telling me, we have the study group of the Spirit's book. Is there any way you can do sort of like a talk around that? I said, yeah, sure. Let's do a talk about the Spirit's book in its totality. So let's take a tour of the Spirit's book, studying its content, because, we're almost in April, and April 18th was the publication of the Spirit's book all the way back in 1857. So almost 200 years now. And in a couple of less than 3 weeks now, we're going to have, another birthday of the publication of this seminal work of this, the fundamental work that started the whole Spiritist movement, which is the Spirit's book. And I wanted to name it A Dialogue with the Beyond because literally that's what happened. It was a bunch of questions and answers. For those who already seen the Spirit's book, you will know the format is a bunch of questions and answers that they would ask the spirits, and the spirits, the wise spirits, would then answer. So I wanted to first mention, about Allan Kardec, who was this educator from France. He was not anybody that was working in religion prior to Spiritism. He actually was an educator, scientist based. He was very much somebody who was aligned with, we need to do everything systematically. And the Spiritist movement, or Spiritism itself, was something that it was started basically by him. So we call him the codifier of Spiritism. And He was doing these things all the way back in France, and around the 1850s. So the first time he went to a seance was 1854. Around the 1850s, they were having the seances. So they were having all these meetings that people at that time would go to, and then they would get around the table, and there were all these physical manifestations, all these crazy things wrapping on the tables and all of that, tables moving, lifting. There was all these things that were these phenomena that were very much attracting a lot of curious eyes. Kardec looked at that and started to realize there was some consistency with those phenomena. There was something deeper there than just mere like play from let's say the beyond, from the disincarnate spirits. So discarnate spirits. So what he started to do was he started to create this book, or he had this idea to compile a bunch of questions and answers and create a book based on that. But Kardec was very much, like I said, a man of science, a man of education. He was very much somebody who wanted to create something, or compile something that had a value. So what he did was he started to go to the different mediums, utilize the different mediums, which were people who could somehow communicate with the spirits. And they would ask questions to the spirits, and the spirits then would answer. Those questions were then incorporated, and then he compiled and organized in the book format all these questions and answers based on different topics. But here's something that happened. Like I said, I put it there, systematic questioning, because he would do it in a way where for the majority of the questions that we have, over 1,000 questions in the Spirit's book, for the majority of them, he would only put the answer there to that question if three different mediums from three different places who did not know one another would give the same answer, meaning the spirits that were communicating with them through them would give the same answer. So three different people from three different parts having that same answer, then he would say, okay, then this is something that's valid, because there was a lot of those who were not necessarily serious or not necessarily valid. So he wanted to do this in a way that's okay. This is beyond doubt now that there is something here. There's something more happening. So we need to be able to put it in a systematic way and be able to give this to the world. So April 18th. So for a couple of years there, not too long, which is insane, because if you think about over 1,000 questions compiling from different cities, can you imagine the amount of work that would have taken? They didn't have email back then. They didn't have ChatGPT. They didn't have Google, text message, live streams like we're doing right now. They didn't have any of that. So can you imagine, in only maybe 2 years-ish, Kardec was able to compile all these questions and answers. I can imagine how his table was full of papers. Probably something like that. So all this monumental work culminated in the first book of what would have then become thousands and thousands of books like we have today. Almost 200 years of Spiritism. And the Spirit's book was the one that initiated it all back in, like I said, April 18th, 1857. So my idea for today was, like I said, to take a tour of the Spirit's book. So look at different questions and different answers and reflect and think, how is it that we can absorb what is being said, and how can we actually apply what's being said to our lives? So let's take a tour then. Number one, this is the first question of the Spirit's book. What is God? And I think it's the most fundamental question of all. The Spiritism being a movement. We say movement, but it's based on three things: philosophy, religion, and science. The stool that maintains Spiritism: philosophy, religion, and science. There's all these three components to Spiritism. But we have to talk about God. So the question was, what is God? And the spirits are going to say, God is the supreme intelligence. First cause with capital F and capital C. This was not me. This is from the book. Of all things. That's it. So this is the way that spirits found to give us the answer of something that is still way beyond our comprehension fully, of God. What is God? It's the supreme intelligence, first cause of all things, the creator of everything. And then question number 3 is, can it be said that God is infinity? And they're going to say an incomplete definition. Poverty of human speech, incompetent to define what transcends human intelligence. Basically, infinity or being infinite is one of the qualities of God. There are other qualities of the Creator as well. So they're saying if we say that God is infinity, it's too reductionary. We're reducing it to something, to one of its attributes. And the best way I can think of this is my 6-year-old son is learning math, and he says, "No, Daddy, like, is addition and subtraction math?" Yes. I'm not going to tell him there's trigonometry, there's geometry, there's all these things to a 6-year-old. He would not understand that. But in his comprehension, addition and subtraction, which is what he's very good at, is math. That's math to him. He's not wrong, but it's just incomplete to say that all math is addition and subtraction. As we adults here who have studied years and years in school, we know there's more than addition and subtraction. But for him, that's what it is. So in a way, this is the way that I found when we're doing these studies to sort of explain how it's one quality of God, but it's not necessarily a all-encompassing quality in the sense that it does not define him. And that's what the spirits are saying there. And then the question number 4, what proof have we of the existence of God? Because this is something that puzzled philosophers, religious people, everybody alike for thousands of years. Okay, what proof do we have? They're going to say the axiom which you apply in all your scientific researches. There is no effort without a cause. There's no effect without a cause. There is no effect without a cause. Same thing we do through our scientific research. Search out, they're going to say, the cause of whatever is not the work of men, and reason will furnish the answer to your question. Who created the earth? Who created the space? Who created nature? Who created this? Was it man? No. So they're saying it's the same thing. And this is a passage that it's also in the Spirit's book that I like, that says the workman is known by his work. So reason tells us that an intelligent effect must have an intelligent force for its cause. So it's an intelligent effect. If we think of the world, if we think of space, if we think of even the tiniest thing, the atoms, from the tiniest to the biggest, we'll see that there is so much harmony there. There's so much balance. There's so much, even the words, I miss the words. I lack the words because it is something that's way beyond our comprehension, how everything sort of works together and how these things came to be. We know very little of outer space. We know very little of still so many things that are in our own planet. So an intelligent, like it's saying, effect must have an intelligent cause, because there is no effect without the cause. God is the cause, the creator of everything. So this is something that they ask, and I think it's amazing because it's, again, one of the first questions of the Spirit's book. And then of following along a little bit more, we have on question 22, what definition can you give of matter? Because then Kardec's going to start to dive into, okay, what about matter? What's spirit? What is perispirit? Is something we talk about. The fluidic body in blood body in spiritism. What are those things? Because remember, the Spirit's book is questions and answers. It's almost like a Q&A, literally a Q&A with the spirits, with the wise spirits that bestowed upon us their knowledge. So what is matter? What definition? They say matter is the element which enchains the spirit, the instrument which serves it, and upon which at the same time it exerts its action. So they're talking about how matter enchains the spirits. Matter itself is inanimate. It needs the spirit, which, by the way, the word to animate or anima comes from soul, the root of the word. So to animate the matter, we need the spirit. But matter, if we think of our bodies here, the ones who are listening to me who are incarnate ones, if we think of the body or matter, it's what's enchaining in a way. Think of chains. It's enchaining the spirit. It's almost like a prison in a way, because it limits all the things that the spirit can actually do. So those are two different things, the spirit and the matter. The spirit acts upon the matter. But these are two different things. But what is the spirit then? Which is the next question. You guys are talking about the spirit. What is the spirit? The intelligent principle of the universe. So this is one distinction that they give us. As far as this is matter, like what your cells in your body, like how I look, my whole body is an encasement for the spirit, which is the intelligent principle of the universe, which is the immortal being that we all are. 36, does an absolute void exist in any part of space? Because if we think of space, we have no idea how vast it is. Still nowadays, 2026 years after Christ, we still don't know. But is there void? Is there anything that's like unfilled or void? No, there is no void. What appears like a void to you is occupied by matter in a state in which it escapes the action of your senses and of your instruments. And this is very key here, because it's also talking, if we think about it, technology as well. And it's talking about the intelligence, it's talking about the development of humankind and humans as a whole, because there's so much that we do not know. There's actually more things we don't know than things we do know, for being very practical. So when we think of everything that's out there, if we think there is void, forget about it. There's no void. There will be matter there, cosmic fluid, however we want to call it in the spirits, however we see in the spirits book and in the codification as well. But the thing is, there is matter in states that we don't know yet. The same way that if we go back in time, hundreds of years ago, there was matter in our planet that we didn't have a name for. We didn't even know existed. We haven't even created yet. But then as we evolved, as intelligence evolves, as the spirit continues to evolve, we start to create new things and understand things a little bit better. But there is no void. Everything is filled in the space, in the vastness of space. The only difference is that it's filled with matter that we know nothing about. And then we talk about the orders of spirits, and I wanted to create sort of like a hierarchy in visual way for us to realize and comprehend, because they're going to say that spirits incarnate in certain planets, in certain stations of development, but there are different types, there are different orders, and they're going to say, okay, well, is there a hierarchy of spirits? There's there a spirits who are like Jesus, who are like all the way up there, and there are others that are like more evil perhaps and things like that. They're going to say, yes, we'll give you one. So just to satiate our curiosity thing, I like to think they gave us 10 classified in 3 different orders. So you have the subclasses there, 10, and you have 3 different orders. From degree, I put an arrow there, from degree of elevation. So the ones that are like below, so like the 3rd order, are those spirits who were created as everyone, simple and ignorant, and are still in the first stages of their own evolution as spirits, in that sense, as in human spirits. So for those we have, this is some of the categories: the impure, the frivolous, pseudo-wise, neutral, noisy, and boisterous. So those are from the 3rd order. Those inhabit planets that are also very much in line with their own development. So those inhabit planets that are planets of, like ours, trials and tribulations or trials and expiations, primitive planets even as well, which is before. So they are the ones that we see where there's the evil tendencies. There's all these things that still very much make them very susceptible to, like I said, evil, I'm gonna put in quotation here, evil doings. So like violence and all these things, because there's a lot of effect from the matter, from the selfish tendencies, from the prideful tendencies. There's a lot of effect of that. So the spirit's pretty much driven by, by greed, by violence, by selfishness, by pride. As they progress, and I say they, we, spirits, we start to see the opposite effect. We start to see the spirit having more influence over matter. So much so that the 2nd order, we have the benevolent spirits, the learned, the wise, and the high spirits. And then we have the 1st order, which for those spirits, they don't need to reincarnate anymore. They have gone through all the stages of depuration of the spirit. And there's a picture there of somebody who has reached that level, and we know of. So That is the first order class, like first and only class. That's it. These are these types of spirit that have already undergone all the trials, all the tribulations. They don't need to reincarnate anymore. Where their spirit exerts, everything is spiritual in their lives, and they exert complete control over matter. But like I said, as we are evolving, and this is just an idea for us to realize how there is this the goodness of our Father, of our Creator, because we're all created simple and ignorant, but we are all given this opportunity to continue to learn, to evolve, to develop in the spirits. And we even go through different stages. Even if we think of a school, like the educational system, you're learning these skills as you're growing older, also as your brain is developing. Kind of like same analogy here. We are learning more and more, and we're advancing slowly but surely. Now, question 115: are some spirits created good and others created bad? Because we see so much good and bad still. Are some created just bad, but in others already like created like good? No. God has created all spirits in a stage of simplicity and ignorance, that is to say, without knowledge. So when we say ignorant, not necessarily like somebody who's rude or violent. No, ignorance in the sense of lacking knowledge. So, in other words, we are all created simple and ignorant. All of us here were created like that. Do any spirits remain forever in the lower ranks? Because we saw the third class there, the third order, right? Do they are there people who stay there forever? No. Amazing. Look at that. They all become perfect. They change in course of time. However long may be the process of amendment, they reach the goal more or less quickly, according to the strength of their desire and the degree of their submission to the will of God. So we all have something called free will. We have the ability to choose and the capacity to choose our actions, capacity to choose what we do with our time, sorry. And based on that, that's what we're gonna see the evolution, at least of the spirits, or the development being quicker or slower, but nobody stops, nobody retrocedes as well as a spirit. We can make a lot of mistakes and really like go slow and try to learn the lessons, but we all learn the lessons and we all progress, because God did not create anybody to remain in a state of simplicity and ignorance, to remain in a state where evil tendencies dominate the behavior, dominate their actions. Nobody's created and is going to stay like that forever. And I think that is such a hopeful thought that Spiritism brings, because it's already destroying some of the preconceived notions that we've probably us, most likely us, have carried for so many incarnations, even of eternal damnation, eternal punishments. No, God is infinite, merciful, kind, and all loving. What father, if he's our heavenly father, would punish their children for all eternity? Would create somebody to be eternally good and somebody else to be eternally bad? That's favoritism. We don't have that from a perfect being. There's no favoritism. What we see is merit. So every action has a merit. If I'm doing good, I'm progressing. And if I choose to not do good, I'm going to have to correct that trajectory through expiations, for instance, which is another word that we hear over and over in Spiritism. Why has God permitted then to be possible for spirits to take the wrong road? Why has God, if he created us, couldn't he have just created us all perfect and good, all everybody in the first class, the first order? He's going to say the wisdom of God is shown in the freedom of choice, the free will that I talked about, which he leaves to every spirit, for each has thus the merit of his deeds. We all have the merit of our deeds. We are where we are because of our choices. In this life and in previous lives too. Period. Our choices. Will the spirits who have chosen the wrong road be able to reach the same degree of elevation, like I was talking before, as the others? Yes. And I love this sentence here. I love the interplay of words here. The eternities will be longer in their case. Eternity, there's no longer eternity. If we think of the semantic aspect of the word eternity, there's no longer short, it's eternity. But I like the little like poetic approach they had to this one. Their eternities will be longer. Those who take the wrong road will see time almost like moving slower because of regret, because of the pain of knowing you did something wrong. So the eternities will be longer in their case. And I really like that sentence. But we're talking about different types of matter. We're talking about spirits progressing. What way can we progress as spirits? Incarnating. It is, what is the aim of the incarnation? It is a necessity imposed on them by God as means of attaining perfection. For some of them, it is an expiation. For others, a mission. So for some, they incarnate with certain trials. They incarnate with certain missions. As we've seen so many spirits, good spirits, who incarnated and they had this great mission. All the Francis of Assisi, all these spirits that we've seen, our Chico Xavier in Spiritism, Divaldo, all these guys. So if you think about that, it's a means for the spirits to become purified. They use the word perfection, but only God is perfect. But the idea is to become purified as spirits. We go through these different processes of reincarnation. So we adopt different material avatars to be able to achieve our purpose, to be able to make amendments for the things that we have done wrong. We all do that, and we all done that. And that is the afterlife. So they're going to ask about the afterlife. So what happens after we die? Meaning, what happens after the body dies? Because the spirit doesn't die. What happens after the body dies? Does a knowledge of spiritism exercise any influence on the duration of the state of confusion? Because they're saying that when we wake up, it's almost like we're waking up in drowsiness. They say, imagine you wake up in the middle of the night. Somebody shakes you, wakes you up. For the first few seconds, you're going to be like trying to get your bearings, right? You're going to be a little drowsy there, and like not. They say for a lot of people, that's how it is when you discarnate. That's when you go to the other side. That's how it feels. But look at what they're going to say. Knowledge of these things, it exercises a very considerable influence on that duration because it enables the spirit to understand beforehand the new situation which it is about to find itself. But the practice of rectitude during the earthly life and a clear conscience are the conditions which conduce the most powerfully to shorten it. Meaning, having the knowledge helps. Knowing that our life is going to continue after we pass away, it's like, yeah, it does help, but they're saying it's not the thing that helps the most. The thing that helps the most, look at that, rectitude during earthly life, a clear conscience. So if we do our jobs right, we go to the other side with a conscience that we did all we could, that we worked actually in good, we worked for the good and to the good, that's gonna make the process much easier. So having the knowledge helps because let's say we're already studying here spiritism, we're studying how we have multiple lives, and we're studying how the soul continues to progress afterwards. Imagine we all die today. When we wake up, let's say there, wake up there. Oh, okay. This is what it is. I remember studying about this. Yeah, it does help. But if all I did was wrongdoings here, it doesn't matter what type of knowledge that I have because I'm still going to be enchained to the matter. I'm still going to be enchained to money. No, I need to go back. I need to sell that. I need to do this, the possession. So, and that's going to make it much harder for the process of the spirits. Moving on. Do we accomplish all of our different corporeal existences upon this earth? So if we have different lives, do we do it all on earth? Not all of them. For those existences take place in many different worlds. The world in which you now are is neither the first nor the last of these, but it is one of those that are the most material and the furthest removed from perfection. Apologize for that. My software for the slides is different than this one, so there's a little overlap there, but it's okay. And for that, I bring this passage from the Bible. In my Father's house are many mansions. There are many stations of the Spirit for the Spirit to incarnate, meaning the different worlds that are all the way like out there in the space that we have no knowledge about. but they all provide perfect opportunities for the spirit to reincarnate and to continue its progress. As we have had many existences, so now it's talking a little bit about the relationships. Do our relationships extend beyond our present existence? And they're going to say it cannot be otherwise because the succession of their corporeal existences establishes among spirits a variety of relationships which date back from their former existences. And these relationships are often the cause of the sympathies and antipathies which you sometimes feel towards persons whom you seem to meet for the first time. So this is something we may experience here in the center, even Spirit the Center. When we meet somebody for the first time, you already have a connection. You feel a connection with them. You feel the sense of, wow, I feel like I've known you for, you're very familiar to me, and I like you, and all these things. And also the other way around as well. Some people are like, oh no, this is that I didn't like that person. I don't know why. Like these could be one of the reasons why we have these two sides of the coin. Because if we all here have had different lives, what's to say that we haven't met each other in another life? And they're going to say that's why sometimes you have these antipathies and these sympathies for people that you meet even for the first time sometimes. Does a spirit retain, when incarnated, any trace of the perceptions he has had and the knowledge he had acquired in its former existences? They're going to say, there remains with him, with the spirit, a vague remembrance which gives the spirit what you call innate ideas. We cannot remember everything that we did in previous lives. Thank God. Thank God. Because somebody's going to say, wait, no, but I wanted to know. Yeah, because we're curious. We want to know. It's normal. Who doesn't? We all do. But the thing is, think of what that knowledge will do to us. Knowing that we have made many mistakes, that we have erred too much. If I'm looking at my son and I remember everything, let's say I did something very bad to him in another life, can you imagine the guilt that would come with that knowledge? And I look at my father, I remember what he did to me in another life, and he destroyed my life in 300 years ago, I don't know, something. How can I forgive? Like, it would be so much harder. It's already so hard to forgive right now when people make mistakes with us and when we make mistakes. Right now, can we imagine if we remember everything? We can't. Thank God we can't. It's a perfect mechanism from a perfect being. But they're saying we still have innate ideas, which is great. And this is where we see talents, for instance. This is where we see inclinations. This is where we see people that you look and you're like, yeah, there's no way this 5-year-old playing Mozart on the piano. That's impossible that this little child with this very much developing brain can play like this if it has not already done so before. So the spirit retains some of the talents, some of these ideas, and we can still remember that. In the state of eroticity, so like when we're not incarnated in a body, and before taking on a new corporeal existence, does the spirit foresee the things which will happen to him in that new existence? He chooses for himself the kind of trials which he will undergo, and it is in this freedom of choice that his free will consists. So the free will consists in this freedom of choice. The more we progress, the more we have the capacity to choose the trials we're going to undergo when we reincarnate. So like I want to come, let's say, with I need to work on, I don't know, just an example. Let's say I need to work on humility or being less vain. So I may choose to come with something that's physically or horrendous for me to learn to be less vain. For instance, just as an example, right? So like we have all these things that we can choose, these mechanisms, even in our own physical body, or sometimes intellectual limitations as well that we may have, that are reflect of what something we chose because we need to work on a virtue, we need to work on a certain quality that we still do not possess. So it's saying here that the spirit chooses for himself the trials, but of course, aided by the higher spirits, by whole departments of reincarnation, as we can see in the whole series psychographed by Chico Xavier, by the spirit André Luis, how in the spirit world, in the spirit realm, there's all these different departments that can help with reincarnation and choosing even the body. How this is what you're gonna look like. Okay, you're gonna have this, and you're gonna have this type of disease, and you're gonna have this disorder, da, 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 helping the person choose their trials. And this is probably one of my favorite parts of the spirits book. When they talk about the influence of spirits. This is more, I think, for the incarnated ones, for us to realize. Can spirits see our most secret thoughts? They often see what you would fain hide from yourselves. Neither acts nor thoughts can be hidden from them. I love this question because I always thought, why did he put secret, right? It's interesting because he could have just said, can the spirit see our thoughts? But he's trying to be even more precise. No, no, our most secret thoughts, the ones that we're trying to hide, like I had that thought, but I'm ashamed, so nobody's going to know that I had that thought. I'm just going to hide it here. Can they see that? And they say, yes. They even see stuff that you try to hide from yourselves. And I think the question that comes right after 459, 458, 459 is great because they're going to say, okay, do they influence our thoughts and our actions then? Because if they can see our thoughts, do they also influence our thoughts? Do they also influence our actions? And this answer to me is so good. Their influence upon them is greater than you suppose, for it is very often they who direct both thoughts and actions. Wait a second. So with Spiritism, we learn that the spirits can see what we're thinking, because before we probably thought that our minds were this fortress of like, this is mine, nobody's gonna know what I'm thinking here. They're only gonna see what I'm doing, but what I'm thinking, nobody will know. No, they do know. Not only they know, but they act upon it. Spirits can act upon our thoughts, and through the thoughts we do things. Through our thoughts we have our actions, and they influence both. How interesting is that? Think about it. Like the responsibility that I think that this knowledge brings is tremendous, because it goes back to what he said so well. Watch and pray. Watch your thoughts. Watch what you're thinking, because it is how we're thinking that we're gonna be in line with the good spirits or the bad spirits, the ones that want to influence not to do things that are not so good. In the interest of time, let's continue to move on. Like I said, it's a tour of the spirits book, so we're gonna give you guys a quick tour, and I know you do the study group, so you can study these things more in depth, amongst yourselves. But has God given? Now I was gonna talk about the laws. Has God given to all men the means of knowing His law? All may know it, but all do not understand it. Those who understand it best are they who seek after goodness. All, however, will one day understand it, for the destiny of progress must be accomplished. All of those. Same way when Christ came, and these guys here were still very much doing things related to the material world. We're still making their mistakes, each driven by their own, sometimes selfish tendencies. They all learned. They all progressed. They all improved. Same as we. We have improved. Certainly. If we go back, I don't know, 1,000 years ago in our previous reincarnation, I guarantee you, we're probably more evil. We're probably doing things that were harsher than we are right now. We have evolved because the progress is unstoppable. We can delay it, like I said, but it is unstoppable. So we will one day understand the will of God. We will one day understand his law. But where is this law written? And I also one of my favorite questions. Where is this law written? In the conscience. The law of God is written in our own conscience. Why is this so beautiful? Because it means that each one of us has access to it. To the law, each one of us. And we do have the influence of this law, for instance, when we do something to ourselves or to someone and we feel guilt, for instance. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that. This is already an understanding, a very faint understanding, of course, of the law of God, which is that everything will be good, pure. So when we're already doing something that we know it's not right, it's not right to steal, it's not right to hurt, it's not right. This is already an application of the law of God that is inscribed here. It's not in the books. It's here. The law of God is in our conscience. And I think that's a beautiful concept for us to embrace. What is the most perfect model type that God has offered as guide and model? Jesus. That's the only word they needed for this answer. Jesus. You want to look to someone? Look to him. To the way, the truth, and the life. That's him. That's Jesus. That's the type that we're striving to be, and that we will one day be, as he said himself. How can we distinguish then between good and evil? And for discussions of good and evil, I definitely recommend Heaven and Hell as well, which is a great book by Allan Kardec from 1865. Good is whatever is in conformity with the law of God, and evil is what deviates from it. So if the law of God is meant for me to be full all love and to love myself and to love my neighbor, if I'm going to hurt my neighbor, that's not doing what love is or what good is. Therefore, that's not good. It's evil. Remember, 1857, they're using language that now we can understand and tease out a little bit more. But good and evil were these two concepts that have stayed for thousands of years in human societies around the globe. Is this good? Is this evil? Right? Wise labor then imposed upon humankind. So this is progressing now as far as, hey, okay, so we have good and evil. How can we do good? How can we progress? Labor. It is a consequence of his corporeal nature. It is an expiation and at the same time a means of developing the intelligence of the spirit. Because without labor, man will remain in the infancy of intelligence. So without having these things that we need to work for, we would remain in an infancy of intelligence. We basically be stationary if we don't do anything. And we can even think of material things or corporeal things. If I don't do anything, if I don't do any exercise, if I stay, if I don't do any exercise at all, how's my body going to be? Muscle-wise, bone-wise, health-wise, organs-wise, right? That's not meant to be that way. Same thing with labor, but now for the spirit. As we're laboring with one another, as we're having this social life, which is the next one that I put there. Is social life founded in nature? Certainly. God has made man for living in society. It is through living with one another that we evolve. Because how can I practice benevolence? How can I practice indulgence of other people's mistakes? How can I practice charity? How can I practice patience? How can I practice forgiveness if I don't have anybody else to do that with? If I'm living in a mountain by myself for my whole life, hunting and feeding myself and all myself, me, how am I going to practice humility? How am I going to practice all those things? We were made to live in society. And if we think of the question as well, is social life founded in nature, is based in nature? Yeah, God has created nature. He has created us. We're also part of nature if you think about it. So we're meant to live in society. We're meant to live with one another. Otherwise, also, how can I correct my mistakes? If I made a mistake against Peter in another life, and I'm going to reincarnate, and I need to solve that mistake with Peter that I made, but I'm going to go live by myself in the middle of the jungle with nobody else around. How can I correct that? I can't. That's the answer. Therefore, we're made to live in society. Can we arrest the march of progress, which is something I already alluded to here? No, we cannot stop the march of progress, but we can hinder it. We can slow progress. How? When we use our free will to do evil. Because if I'm going ahead and I'm progressing, and all of a sudden I make a mistake that I thought I had learned, but I make let's say a dire mistake. My progress now, I'm going to have to correct that through an expiation. So it's going to be a little slower. But that's okay, because again, remember, it's gradual and it's always happening. And what is the great obstacle to progress? Another very known question from the Spirit's book, I'd say, for those who have seen Spiritist lectures. Pride and selfishness. Greatest obstacle to progress, therefore, is pride and selfishness. Wow. So the two scourges of our progress as human beings is pride and selfishness. Because if we think about the more evolved we become, the less prideful and selfish we become. Pride and selfishness are the opposite of humility and charity. Because if I'm prideful, I'm not going to be humble. If I'm selfish, I'm not going to be charitable. So therefore, these are the two things that stop our progress. And now we don't have time to discuss all of this, but just think about all of the all that's wrong in the world. I guarantee you, you're going to find pride and selfishness in whatever it is that you think about. Guarantee you. Some actions perhaps more from pride more than selfishness, other ones more from selfishness than pride. Anything that you think about, that you look at it like, wow, how is that even possible? Pride and selfishness, because we're still very much in this state where we are far from being a spirit of the first order, and pride and selfishness still drive our actions to a degree that even we become ashamed when we think about it. But they are the two biggest obstacles to progress. And that's why something that I think Spiritism brings to us that it's amazing is first of all, the knowledge, and number two, the ways to apply and the tools to apply this knowledge to overcome pride and selfishness. In what way can Spiritism then contribute to progress? By destroying materialism, which is one of the sores of society, and thus making men understand where their true interest lies. The future life being no longer veiled by doubt, men will understand more clearly that they can ensure the happiness of their future by their actions in the present life. So Spiritism can help destroy materialism. Why? Because we understand that we are a soul living in a body. We are not a body with a soul. We are a soul with a body. With that knowledge itself already, we can already understand how, okay, so if I have the body here, if I have everything, all the material possessions that I have, if I have all of that, I know that that's going to stay behind. When my spirit progresses and I die, everything is going to stay behind. But the spirit will remain. Everything that I've done, everything that I acquired will remain. But the body, the material things, this is all going to stay behind. This is an instrument that we must use well. This is an instrument that we must use well. And Spiritism helps by destroying materialism. Materialism here, let's think of, let's create a concept. This attachment to material things. That's what Spiritism does. Don't become overly attached to this, because it's going to go away, as it has had many times, because this is not our first time in a body, inhabiting a body. So Spiritism helps with that. Is it possible for a man to enjoy perfect happiness upon earth? Perfect happiness. Pay attention to this, the qualifying adjective there, perfect happiness. No. For corporeal life has been appointed to him either as a trial or an expiation, but it depends upon himself to lighten the evils of his lot and to render it as happy as life can be upon the earth. So we cannot find perfect happiness here, and that's okay, because we know one day we're going to find that. There are different types of worlds that we learn as well. And in these different types of worlds, the spirit's going to find more and more happiness. But it's saying here, how can you find happiness in a plan of trial and expiation, of trials and atonements, where everybody has pride and selfishness driving their actions? You're not going to find full happiness, at least not in the way that you'd like. And they also talk about heaven and hell, or this idea, and I put there one of the final questions there. What is it to be understood by purgatory? And they're going to say physical and moral suffering, the period of expiation, is almost always upon the earth that you are made by God to undergo your purgatory and to expiate your wrongdoing. So in a way, this is purgatory, in a way. In a way, we are expiating a lot of wrongdoing that we've done before here, and as we have had already. But the more we strive to do good, the more we strive to overcome pride, overcome selfishness, the closer we are to him. the closer we are to becoming, to going to a state of a spirit that is without impurities, spirit without imperfections. And we are progressing. And I think the hopeful tone of spiritism is something that really, I think it really should be always highlighted in these talks and study groups and all of that. This idea that we're always progressing, that we are always striving to do better. And we need to, and I always say this in my lectures, like we need to take this, the knowledge, we need to take what they bestowed upon us and put into practice. Everything is very beautiful if you just read and think about it. It's great, but we need to go out there and we need to put it into practice and changing ourselves so we can change others. The external being a reflection of the internal. And that's something that I'm very passionate about with spiritism. Not only talking about how it makes sense, but also talking about how to apply those things. And Peter even mentioned, and it's one way that I found to do that was through my podcast, which is something that it's only it depends on me only. So I just do it once a week. Invite you guys to check it out as well, YouTube or Spotify, called Spiritist Companion in English and Companheiro Espírita in Portuguese, where I bring every week 12 to 15 minute short episodes with a little piano in the back, so we can start thinking about these things, but also getting practical applications of the knowledge. So we don't spend a whole life just consuming the knowledge and like reminiscing how beautiful it is, but we don't apply it. We need to apply that. Now, on to our last question of today. And the last question of the Spirit's book. Will the reign of goodness ever be established upon the earth? It's a long answer here, and I didn't want to paraphrase it. Goodness will reign upon the earth when, among the spirits who come to dwell in it, the good shall be more numerous than the bad. So it's a math equation here. For they will then bring in the reign of love and justice, which are the source of good and of happiness. It is through moral progress, I underline that, moral progress in practical conformity with the laws of God, that men will attract to the earth good spirits who will keep the bad ones away from it. But the latter will not definitely quit the earth until its people shall be completely purified from what? The two greatest obstacles to progress: pride and selfishness. So this is how it's going to be, because the earth is always is also transitioning. The planet, this station of improvement, is also transitioning. It's also improving, and it's going to continue to do so, because again, the law of progress. So the more we're doing good, the more we are advancing our moral progress through combating pride and selfishness, the quicker. It's not an if situation. It's how fast. The quicker we're going to be able to transform not only ourselves, but others as well. And then with that, we have this chain of goodness that will sweep over and take over the earth. And then we're going to find the good spirits continue to come and help us. And those who still need to improve being transported to other places, other planets as well. And then we'll have the reign of what they say good, because again, we're still talking about 1857. The words were still very limited, good and evil, very much this duality. But then the reign of good will be established here once we are able to improve ourselves and improving others along as well. So the book relevance today, this last slide here, just like a summary that I wanted to put, talks about more improvements. So the first consequence of spiritist belief is to make us better by showing us the path of duty, what we must do. Understanding suffering and injustice, understanding how there's no injustice in the eyes of God. It explains the cause of human suffering, the apparent injustices of life. Number 3, it encourages responsibility and free will, because we are the creators of our own fate. We create our own destiny. And consolation in the face of death, because Spiritism virtually killed death. Death died by the hands of Spiritism, because we now know what happens after. And it's just one part of the long process of the evolution of the spirit. And last but not least, promoting universal fraternity, All humans are brothers and siblings and sisters because they're all spirits incarnated in human form. We are all from the same creator. We all have the same heavenly father, mother, everything that we think about. So we're all meant to help one another, to live in society, to improve ourselves and improve others too. And a spirit center like this one with 35 years. I'm 37 years old, so it's a real big honor to talk about a spirit center that's basically as old as I am. Is not without the fraternity. Doesn't grow and it doesn't stay for 35 years without workers committed to their moral improvement, their moral progress, and the fraternity that we must all put into practice. So that's it for my talk today. I leave you guys with a quote from Allan Kardec, but I wanted to just say thank you so much for the patience, for the understanding, and I hope this was a useful tour of this long and very rich book, the Spirit's Book. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yuri. Appreciate it. We're going to wrap up. We will not do any questions and answers. Unfortunately, we're a little short on time, but I certainly encourage all of you to talk to Yuri for about the half hour or so that we have, and then we'll begin the next presentation, the palestra, at 11 as usual. I'll say a few brief words then, and then I'll hand it over to Ilza to coordinate. But let us close with a prayer. Dear God, may all of us come into contact with what it means to have immortal spirits that are subject to trials, to learning, to happiness, as well as times of difficulty. May we have the strength to get through each and every moment. May we be thankful for our talents. May we be thankful for our capacity to develop intellectually and morally. May we put the main tenet of Spiritism into practice. Without charity, there is no salvation. Thank you, dear God, for being with us each and every day. Amen.